I'm gonna use. I just woke up, and usually some things come to me, and I thought, hey, I'm done doing videos, right? Um, and then I thought about this, about like my own situation, right? But naturally, this is going to go all the way back to childhood. The difference between being independent and being dependent. So I was musing, for example, how Mama Earth gives us everything that we need. Okay, and that's obvious, which means she does it out of love and service to others. Okay, so if you've spent, I've spent most of my life in nature, in the trees, on the beach, in the jungle, the desert, wherever Mama is. Okay, to commune with her spirit, be with her energy. When you're in love with nature, you're in love with her. What that means is the flow of the music, which is the flow of nature. Her consciousness, your spirit, and her spirit are now in harmony. It means you have a relationship with the goddess. Okay? And what that means is when you're going with the flow, that flow is communication with those frequencies and that vibration. Which means whatever it is, because you're experiencing what love is, which is what the law is, and she is what love is, which is what the law is, that relationship between the two, which is what love is, means that you're not going to experience any loss of what it is that you need in energy, because you're going to experience what love is to her by the love that you feel in yourself. That's a harmonic relationship. You're tuned in. You're tuned into the girl's music. Okay? That's simple enough to explain if you've experienced that, being with her that way. Okay? Now, because of the way that the money system works and operating in the underworld, which is their world, not our world, okay, this is a good example of sort of how it works. Okay? I live in a house and I have Social Security, right? But I don't have any wheels. The wheels that I did have were over on the mainland when the transmission blew a few months ago, and I flew over here because I normally live out of a tent on the beach and then walk and hike and use the bus to get whatever I need, right? In this particular case, I was offered a place to stay. I pay rent here, but I don't have any wheels to go to town to get anything. So I'm out of everything, but I'm not really out of anything because I'm used to having to negotiate or navigate my way through a system that's based on a poverty of energy, because that's what they do. Okay, it's a vampiric energy zone. So in order for you to get what you need, by the way that this world works, which isn't based on what love is, which is based on what fear is, you have different beings that operate in negative polarity, which is reverse flow. So an example of that would be Aaron, who lives upstairs, right? And I began realizing how this works, because this is how it's been working with a lot of people ever since I was a little kid, back in the 1950s. And it works sort of like this. Now, if I want to go to town, I have to find a nice, how would I put this? Not just honorable and respectful, but a way in which what happens is that I get a ride into town, okay, without Aaron feeling obligated to do it, but hopefully that he feels out of his own love, compassion, and care for others, he would naturally do that the same way that Mother Earth does that, out of love and service to others. So what happens is, because I've experienced this so much throughout my life, is it's done. In other words, people will do that for you because they realize you have a need, particularly if you ask them. They don't want to be perceived as an uncaring, uncompassionate being when they're experiencing that you are. Okay? Which means when they're running the negative magnetic polarity going in reverse flow, which means they're never catching up to zero for want of energy. And time is energy. And now he has to take out time and energy in order for me to be able to go where I need to go, right? He doesn't want to be perceived as a bad guy or an uncaring person, because otherwise he looks bad when he knows that I'm always giving things away whenever he asks me for money or whatever. I do it freely. See? So it's different. It's like, see, we gift energy away. See how that works? So this is the tension span, the rubber band. It goes snap, or if you will, critical mass. Okay, and why the Earth is going in the direction it is now, because these two worlds just do not work together, do they? When I was growing up as a kid, we called it different strokes for different folks. They're simply not there yet. And so much of it is related to the artificial intelligence as a result of dead light. Because what do you think it runs on? Us. That's right. So it needs its assets, which are those prototypes, those stereotypes, those types of stereo receivers and transmitters that operate on negative magnetic polarity. Okay? In order to hold us captive to it. See how that works? Now we become dependent on something that isn't in love and service to others because of the way that the system works that is not in balance. Okay? So you can see this in all their movies with Divergence, the new version of War of the Worlds, Halo, The Chosen, Star Wars. So there has to be more of us. Otherwise you realize what happens. The artist is consumed by the vampire. And in this case, it's an AI. Because I knew when I looked up and realized that the pilots that were flying chemtrails, who do you think is running those things? An AI is. It uses all of its assets in which to do the things that they do against us because they're not who we are. They live in those worlds. We don't live in those worlds. That's the difference. That's the difference in what's known as torque speed differential in water worlds. They don't live in the same water worlds that we do. For self-evident reasons. Because that kind of world only has a finite shelf life. If you're not in balance, and if you're not in love and service to others, your mirror is temporary, which is known as temporal space, which means it's only a matter of time before you run out of energy. Because what's going to happen is, it's just like one of the blurbs from Gaia Terra yesterday. We get tired of spiritual warfare. That means spirits that are in the purest of light, which is the purest of love, that come armed with a lot of fire, are going to say, that's enough. Love is the law. For self-evident reasons. Nobody, not on any level, should ever have to have a trigger of a negative magnetic reaction because they're dependent on somebody else for energy. Okay? That's a vampire. By definition, that is a vampire. Okay? So you're depending on corporate vampires in order to maintain what it is you're aware of and energy because of the way that the system works in draining our energy. And that's what we used to call, as children, ass backwards. Because it runs ass backwards. Which means you're not experiencing anything new because you're not experiencing any love. And if you're not experiencing any love, then how do you expect to have a future? So what we're talking about here is reproducing another one of what you are or what I am. And that's their plan, is to control the population of the species by tampering with it. That's also against the law. So there is an awful lot to account here as a result of what we experience here, which is the record of the crimes. Okay? So the crimes are enormous. The number is just way too big. So there are a lot of us that would just assume burn it all off with a brand new sheet of paper. White sheet of paper, white light, enormous amount of fire, that's purified. The purifiers are here. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works this morning. See? I have no idea what this guy's reaction is going to be, right? Because you don't want to interfere with somebody else's, impose your will on somebody else's, because it might be that somebody else has I want to go do all these other things. Now all of a sudden I have to stop and take out time in order to help somebody else. See? That means I got to use my energy to help somebody else. See how that works? Time is energy. Energy is money. That's what they're held captive to. That's why it works ass backwards. Because it's not in love and service to others. That's what the law is. Have a great day. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.